Hello everyone, I am Quazi Abrar Hasan, and today I will be talking about my ancestral history and my family origin. It all began and dates back to 16th century. In 1504, the Turkic Mongol prince Babur conquered Kabul and Ghazni and established himself there. In 1511, he captured Samarkand, only to realize that the formidable Safavid dynasty in Iran and the Uzbeks in Central Asia, he should rather turn to the southeast towards India to have an empire of his own. He made several excursions. He invaded Bhera, Sialkot, and Lahore. He showed his definite intentions to conquer Hindustan, where the political scene favored his adventure. The term Quazi was used during the time of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and during the early history of Islam. And this term was used for the judges throughout the Islamic history and the period of Caliphate. The Qazis were given responsibility for total administrative, judicial, fiscal control over a territory or a town. He would maintain all the civil records as well. He would also retain a small army or force to ensure that his ruling are enforced. The Qazis, my ancestors, came to the subcontinent from Iran right after the collapse of the Sultanate of Delhi in India during the 1526. Mughal rule emerged in India at that time. So after the death of Emperor Babur, his son Humayun, he inherited the hope of, rather than the fact of, an empire and occupied Gujarat probably in 1535. And the danger was there, and it did not end with Bahadur's death, which was in 1537. So meanwhile, an Afghan soldier of fortune, Sher Shah of Suri, he consolidated his power in Bihar and Bengal. As the empire expanded, so did the legal complexities that were built into the system of administration and carried over. They were enhanced by the conditions of frontier expansion. In particular, the Islamic Empire adapted legal devices to deal with the existence of large populations of non-Muslims and persistent features of the empire despite incentives for conversion, and in part because of the institutional protection of communal and legal forums. These aspects of Islamic legal order would have been quite familiar to the travelers from the parts of the world. And that is how our bloodline made its way to the Bengal province. In most cases, the Qazis would pass on the title and the position to his son, descendant, or a very close relative. Over the centuries, this profession became a title within the families, and the power remained within one family in a region. Throughout the Muslim regions, now we find various Qazi families who descended through their famous Qazi ancestors and retained the land and position. Each family is known by the town or the city that their ancestors controlled. Approximately around 200 years ago, my great-grandfather, Qazi Faizuddin, he migrated from Bihar, and he established the first Qazi family settlement in Boramara, which is in Pabna of Bengal. And he was basically the descendant of Qazi Ghulam Mustafa, and he was a very prominent nobleman from the Mughal judicial court. Qazi Ghulam Mustafa, who was one of the prominent noblemen and Amir, and belonged to the Firozpur Zikra, who was entitled Kar Talab Khan by Bahadur Shah I. Yeah, Qazi Faizuddin, he was a landlord and with a lot of ancestral fortune. His son, on the other hand, he was a bit different. He was Hafiz Muhammad Basiruddin, who was the first Pir-e-Awliya of the Boramara Qazi family. And Hafizuddin, he had two sons. One of them were Al-Hajj Pirzada Qazi Muhammad Hasan and Qazi Muhammad Hussain, who migrated from actually Qazi Muhammad Hussain, he migrated to Assam later on, which was before the Bengal division in 1947. Qazi Muhammad Hasan was an advocate during the British Raj period, and he had four sons and one daughter. Among them, there was Qazi Abul Qasim. He was the commandant of the security department of Bangladesh Railway, and Abdul Rashid, he was the engineer of the Bangladesh Railway, who is my grandfather. And among their other brothers and sisters, there was Mizanur Rahman, Qazi Mizanur Rahman, who was in the Pakistan Army, 3rd SP LAD of, and he was at service at the Multan cantonment in West Pakistan. And among them, the youngest brother was Qazi Jahangir Hussain, who was a train examiner officer. He was also in the Bangladesh Railway. And they had one sister, who was Helena Qazi. And Qazi Faizuddin was a landlord with ancestral fortune. His son was Hafiz Muhammad Basiruddin, who was different, and he was the first Pir-e-Awliya of the Boramara Qazi family. Hafiz Muhammad Basiruddin had two sons, Al-Hajj Pirzada Qazi Muhammad Hasan and Qazi Muhammad Hussain. Qazi Muhammad Hussain, who later on migrated to Assam before the Bengal division in 1947. My grandfather, Qazi Abdul Rashid, who had one son and one daughter, and my grandmother was Kulsum Berry. So the first son Qazi Abdul Rashid had is Qazi Ismat Hasan, who is my father, and my mother is Kandakar Hamid. And his firstborn was Qazi Abrar Hasan, and Qazi Ashraf Hasan was the second son. Thank you for listening. This is Qazi Abrar Hasan, and that was my family tree. And now you know the origin of my ancestral history. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it.